Hello, dear students, and welcome back to the social science classes again. Students, till now we have completed almost 6 chapters in social studies, and now, after a break, I'm going to start the further chapters again. We are going to start the third chapter of history, that is Peasants and the Raj. In the previous 2 chapters, we have learned about that how the EIC or the English East India Company came to India and how it became a territorial power from a trading company. We have seen that the main source of income for the Britishers in India was the land revenue. So this chapter is the peasants and the Raj. That means we are going to learn about the condition of the farmers at the time and the Raj. That means what were the major steps taken by the Britishers for their economical development in India. What they did to gain more and more money from the Indians, and as the land revenue was the major income for their economy, that is why they basically focused for improving the land revenue in India. Now we will see this chapter is also known as ruling the countryside. What is the meaning of the countryside? That the Britishers adopted some policies for collecting the revenue in the rural areas. Countryside means the rural areas of India from where they can get the land revenue. Basically, the land revenue, or we can say that the most important source of the land revenue was agriculture, and agriculture was done in the rural areas. So basically they depend or they on the agricultural field for the source of their income. So in this chapter we will see that various land revenue systems came into practice across the Indian subcontinents that were introduced by the Britishers. When the large tract of countryside came under British rule, certain crops which had greater commercial value came to be favored for cultivation. We will also see that for the fulfillment of their raw material, yeah, for the fulfillment of the factories or for the raw materials of their factories, they depend upon the cultivation in India. So they change the cultivation of India from the food crops to the commercial crops. This also we will see. So as a result, there were some major crops that came to India that were indigo, opium, tea that we will see later. That how these crops gain importance as raw materials for the Britishers. So basically, British maintain a healthy balance of trade. We have learned about mercantilism also. So these crops were cultivated at the cost of food crops. Cash crops were also grown at the cost of food crops only, and they started exploiting our farmers. All these things we are going to see in this chapter. So before starting the chapter, I'm providing you some keywords. Let's focus on that. So, peasants. Peasants is the word that is used for the farmers only. So, basically, peasants or farmers are, or a farmer is a person, or a peasant is a person who is having some land, who owns or rent a small piece of land for growing crops. Sometimes we have learned about small farmers, large farmers, middle farmers. So the large farmers are the farmers those who are having their own land. There are some farmers also those who are not having their own land and they do farming on someone else's land. So basically they were the agricultural laborers. Raj. This word is used for the British sovereignty or government. Raj means the British government. Next is riot. We will in this word is also very important in this chapter. Riots were the cultivators or served as hired laborers. That means the large farmers were having some laborers. These laborers or these cultivators were only known as riots, those who cultivate on others' land. Zamindars, we have learned about zamindars and they are very well known to us. We have seen that zamindars were responsible for collecting the land revenues by the Mughal periods. So basically, they exercised great influence and power in the Mughal period also, and they collected taxes from the peasants and gave them to the Mughal emperor or the Mughal rulers. We have seen about the zamindars in the Mughal period also. So let's start our chapter. First, I will introduce you the chapter. Then the company becomes the divan. How the company becomes the divan, we will see. Revenue for the company, the need to improve agriculture, introduction of permanent settlement, and problem in permanent settlement. So first is I will provide you the introduction of the chapter, what we are going to see in this chapter. So firstly, the company becomes the Diwan. We have seen that after the Battle of Buxar, how the British East India Company got the Diwani right, got the right to collect the tax in India, and from where they get the revenue, basically they get the revenue from the agriculture. Now we will see that for collecting the revenue for the company, what were the problems that company faced in India and what were their solution that they concluded, what were the solutions of their problem and what were the result of those solutions. So basically, for collecting the revenue, they introduced three revenue systems in India. First was permanent settlement, next was Ryotwari settlement, and the third is Mehelwadi settlement, for collecting the revenue only. We will learn about all these three agrarian policy, or we can say that we will learn about all these three systems of the collection of revenue in this chapter. After that, we will see that which crops were important or in India, and or we can say that which crops can be were grown in India and that were important for Europe also, for the European industries. The most important crop we will learn in this chapter is indigo. Indigo is basically the blue dye that we use to dye our clothes. Next we will see commercialization of agriculture and cultivation. We will see that how Britishers commercialize our agriculture. Earlier in India, basically people were only growing for themselves, or they were only growing food crops, or little bit they were growing for their industries, since their industries were not developed. So the Britishers introduced the commercialization of crops. They focused for the commercialization of the crops only. Next, we will see that after the oppressive activities of the Britishers, what was the result or what was the outcome of that, and that resulted in some rebellion, that was blue rebellion because of the indigo, that was also known as indigo revolt. We will see all these things in this chapter. So let's start our chapter from the company becomes the divan. This we have already learned, but let's revise it once again. Diwani is the right to collect land revenue. This we are knowing that the Diwani is the right to collect the land revenue. We are also very well familiar that on 12th August 1765, after the Battle of Buxar, the Mughal emperor appointed the East India Company as the Diwan of Bengal. We have seen that Shah Alam II provided the Diwani rights to, at that time, I think, to Robert Clive. So the actual event most probably took place in Robert Clive's tent. So Shah Alam provided the Diwani right of Bengal to English East India Company, or the official of English East India Company. Now, as our government is having the right to collect the tax, if our government is collecting the taxes from us, then what is the responsibility of the government in lieu of those taxes? Our government work for our welfare or provide us those facilities if we are paying taxes. Suppose that we are paying tax for the road, so our government is providing us well maintained roads. For water, they are providing us water. So like that only, if the company is having the right for collecting the revenue, now it is also important that the company work for the welfare of the people also. The responsibility, they are having the right to collect the revenue, but they were also having the responsibility of administering the land and organizing its revenue sources. It is not like that if our government is collecting taxes from us, so they are only having the right to collect taxes from us or to gain more and more money from us. They are also responsible for our welfare. Like that, only Britishers were also responsible, but they do not follow any of their responsibilities, and they only extracted more and more money from the Indians. They do not work for any kind of welfare, for improving the land qualities, for the betterment of the farmers. They did nothing. They only exploited the farmers, and they introduced the policies through that they can gain more and more revenue and for their profit. Basically, the English East India Company was the trading company. Any trading company can work for their benefit or the profit only. This had to be done in a way that could yield enough revenue to meet the growing expenses of company. Since the company was expanding day by day and their expenses was also increasing. So to fulfill their expenses, it was very necessary that they get more and more money from India. So like that only they started gaining more and more money through this revenue. They focused only for collection of the revenue. They do not take any responsibility for the welfare of the people of India. Since EIC was a trading company, now what is the work of the trading company? The buying and selling process. Buying and selling was only the motto, and to only earn profit, that is only the business of the trading company. Why they should focus for the betterment of India? So, but the company understood this also, that for collecting the revenue, now, by the experience of the company, the officials were already knowing that for collecting the revenue in India, it is very important to pacify those who ruled the countryside in the past. That means those who were having the responsibility for ruling the country in the past, they have to pacify, they have to maintain a good relation with all those, like with the local rulers or with the zamindars, with the chieftains, with the nobles. They have to maintain a good relationship with them. After that only they will be able to collect a good amount of revenue from the Indians or Indian farmers. They do not they understood this thing, that they could not be entirely eliminated. That means the zamindars, the local rajas, the nobles or the chieftains, they have to give some responsibility by the Britishers, so that because they were the local, the people of India were familiar with the zamindars, with the local rajas more in comparison to the Britishers. There was the language problem also. Many local Indians were not able to understand their languages also. So basically, the Britishers need some of the people whom they can trust, and they can work for them to collect the revenue. So now we will see the revenue of the company. Now, what is the responsibility of the company as the Divans? The responsibility of the company as the Divans is that they wanted a large revenue income. But as a trader, they were not willing to set up any regulation system of assessment and collection. If we are growing crops on same land again and again, the land will lose its fertility. The land also needs some amount of care so that it can yield more and more. The farmers also need some motivation so that they can do their work. But the company was not taking any care of the land also and of the farmers also. They only know how to extract more and more money. So as the traders, they will do that only, but as the Divan, they have to administer the land also. But they did not do this. Now, what was its impact on India? What was the impact, all these impact on India? The dual system of governance, started by British in Bengal and aimed at increasing the land revenue for the company and by fine cotton and silk cloth at cheap rates with that revenue. Now basically, as they got the revenue rights, earlier what happened? What was happened earlier? That Britishers brought their gold and silver from their country, and they give those gold and silver to us and take the raw materials from us. So basically, what they were doing, they were giving us gold and silver, and we were giving them the raw material. But as they got the Diwani right, they started getting the source or revenue as their income. Now, what they were doing, they use their revenue only, that revenue, for purchasing goods from India only. So, the money of India is only used for purchasing the raw materials from India only. Now, Britishers, there was no need for the Britishers to bring their gold and silver. Now, they started using our money only for purchasing our raw materials or our goods only. So the urge to maximize revenue directly, their greediness of getting more and more revenue increased, and the urge to maximize revenue directly led to the infamous Bengal famine of 1770. So basically, what happened, the India started facing crisis of money. Bengal started facing crisis in the field of economy. The peasant and artisans became workless, jobless, and they started suffering. They started moving from to their or for started moving towards alternate employments. One third of the population perished. The one third of the population of Bengal just perished. The people started dying, and agriculture was abundant at many places, and people were not doing agriculture. So what happened? Britishers started collecting the revenue, but they were not administering the land. That means they started exploiting the Indian farmers, and ultimately it resulted in the famine, and many of the people died in India at that time. Now the Britishers realized that if the economy of Bengal face crisis, then from where they will get the revenue? So for that only, now they decided that now they will take care of the agriculture, and they will improve the agriculture in India. Because if they will not focus on improving of the agriculture in India, then they will not get the enough revenue. It is obviously or quite obvious clear that if the agricultural produced will increase, then only they will get good amount of revenue. If the farmers were not able to produce that much, then they will not get the good amount of revenue. So that is why now some of the British officials started thinking that the economy of Bengal or their economy depend upon the source of revenue only, and the source of revenue is agriculture. So if they will not improve the agriculture, how they will get a good amount of revenue? Now they realize that they have to improve the agriculture, and they have to work in the field to improve the agriculture. Next is, so basically now the English East India Company embarked or focused on a systematic approach to land revenue collection. Now they started thinking that what policies they can adopt for a systematic land revenue collection, so that the resources also not exploited, or we can get a good amount of revenue. With a view to collect maximum amount of revenue in a timely and predictable manner. Now they started thinking that how they can get a good amount of revenue in limited time, or how they can improve agriculture. The company officials began to felt that investment in land had to be encouraged. They started thinking that we have to invest some amount in the land also, and agriculture had to be improved. Then only their land revenue can increase. Now, the company officials thought how to improve agriculture. Now they started thinking that how they can improve the agriculture. So for this, the first system that was introduced, that was the permanent settlement. This permanent settlement was introduced by the then Governor General of Bengal, Lord Cornwallis, in 1793. Permanent settlement was introduced by At that time, the Governor General of Bengal was Lord Cornwallis, and he only introduced the idea of or the policy of permanent settlement in 1793. Now we will see that what was permanent settlement, why Lord Cornwallis introduced permanent settlement, and how it works. What was the result of permanent settlement? Now, what was permanent settlement? So, students, permanent settlement was an agreement. It was an agreement between the Britishers and the Zamindars. Between the Britishers and the Zamindars. As we have seen in class 7th also, that who were the zamindars? So zamindars were the rich landowners, those who were having a good area of land they were having. What they did, the farmers grow on those land, and what is the responsibility of the zamindars? That the zamindars had to collect the revenue. Now, in this permanent settlement, Britishers adopted that Mughal policy only, and they appointed the zamindars for collecting the revenue from the farmers. According to this, the zamindars were asked to collect the rent or revenue from the peasants and pay revenue to the company. Now, what is the responsibility of these zamindars? That the zamindars had to collect the revenue from the peasants, and then they have to give that revenue to the Britishers. Now, let's see what happened here. As you can see that farmers, what was the responsibility of the farmers? The farmers were growing crops on their land, and the zamindars were responsible for collect the zamindars were provided some amount of land from the Britishers, and they were collecting revenue from that land. That zamindars, after collecting the revenue, they give that amount of revenue to the Britishers. Now we will see that what were the features of the permanent settlement. So first of all, the zamindars became the intermediary. The zamindars became the intermediary between the farmers and the Britishers. They collect a good amount of revenue from here, and they give it to the Britishers. They became the intermediary. They were responsible for collecting the revenue. Who were responsible for collecting the revenue in permanent settlement? Zamindars. The landowners or zamindars got hereditary rights over the land. They were having the hereditary rights. That means the zamindar after his son. So it is hereditary right. They were having the hereditary right on a particular area of land. The farmers became the tenant on their own land. That zamindars were only having the responsibility of collecting the land, but they were they became the owners of that land. The farmers were the owners of the land, but zamindars were having the responsibility of collecting the revenue. So indirectly, they only became the owners of the land, and the tenants and the farmers became the tenants. That means kiraidar on their own land. The amount of revenue was fixed permanently. Now, why this policy is known as permanent settlement? Because the amount of revenue was fixed. Whether the farmer is able to produce that much or not, whether there is any kind of famine, drought, flood, farmers were not able to produce that much, but after that also the revenue amount was fixed. We have learned in the medieval period that how the Indian rulers used to decide the revenue according to the land. They first administer the land, and then only they decide. If the land is very good, very fertile, they decide the revenue like that only. But in this permanent settlement, the Britishers do not administer the land. They do not do any kind of survey for the land to know about the quality of the land, that how much a farmer can produce on that land, and they decide the revenue. They do not care for any kind of famine like flood or drought. They fix the revenue, that whether the farmer is able to produce that much or not, the revenue will be fixed. In case of non repayment, now since the revenue was fixed, if the farmers were not able to produce that much, so for paying the land revenue, they were forced to take loans. And now again, for the repayment of loan, they have to, if they were not able to repay their loan, they have to mortgage their land, girvi rakhna. They have to mortgage their land to the money lenders, and they became landless laborers. Now, what was the consequence of the permanent settlements? So, first we will see what was the consequence of the permanent settlements for the Britishers. Since the revenue amount was fixed, now Britishers started getting fixed amount of revenue, steady and fixed amount of revenue regularly. Like if a person is working and he is getting salary, so that person is working for a month and he is getting the salary in the next month. So that person, the salary is also fixed, and that person is getting a steady, that means a regular amount of income every month, and that income is fixed also. Like that only happens in the case of permanent settlement. Since the interest was fixed, so they were, Britishers started getting a fixed amount of revenue. Suppose that on a particular, a zamindar, according to the rate of interest, a zamindar is able to collect 1 lakh rupee. So since the revenue is fixed, that 1 lakh rupee will come in each and every month to the Britishers. But there are two sides. First is positive. Let's see. If the farmer is not able to produce that much, then also the farmer is was forced to pay that much interest or that much tax. Now what happened? The in this the farmer is having the loss, but the Britishers are getting their money. If the farmer is not able to pay, how the zamindar will give that fixed amount of money to the Britishers? So here the zamindars and the farmers were in loss and the Britishers were in gain. Next side we can see that if the production increased, if the farmer is able to produce more on that particular land, and now the zamindar is also in profit and the farmer is also in profit. But company will get that much only because they have fixed the revenue. The zamindars were responsible to invest in improving the land. Now, the Britishers, since they want to improve the land, the Britishers thought that if they will give the responsibility of collecting the revenue to the zamindars will be responsible for improving the land or for take care the agricultural processes. But it was not like that. Zamindars were not taking care of any kind of idea to improve the land. Now, for the zamindars, how zamindars were benefited? The zamindars emerged as a royal class allies to the EIC. The zamindars were loyal to the Britishers. Some were loyal, some were not, but they were the rich landowners. They were having money. They were not the exploited class. Since the revenue was fixed, the zamindars would benefit from increased production of land. Abhi I explain you that if the production increase, the zamindar will have the benefit, because zamindar is only going to collect the revenue from the farmers. They are only knowing that how is the production. The Britishers are not going to the farmers. They often extracted exorbitant rates from the farmers for their huge profit. They the revenue was fixed, but the zamindars started asking for more money to the farmers. They also started exploiting the farmers. So the farmers were exploited by the Britishers also and by the zamindar also. Next, we will see how what was its consequence for the peasants. The farmers lost the right to the use of pastures. They were not even use the pastures for their animals, for the forest land also, because forest area was also taken care by the Britishers only. For the irrigation canal also, by the Britishers permission only they get the right to irrigate their field. By the fishing ponds also, that was also conquered by the Britishers. They were forced to pay the revenue even if the crops failed. In the case of the failure of their crops also, the farmers were forced to pay the revenue. They were Now, if the crops fail, from there we will pay the revenue. So they were forced to borrow money from the money lenders at high interest rate. The money lenders took the advantage of the condition of the farmers and they gave them loan at higher interest. In case of non repayment of loans, and if the farmers were not able to pay the loans, the land was mortgaged to the money lenders. Now they lose their land also. Now, if they lose their land also, they became landless laborers. So the peasant had to look for alternate employment and even migrate to cities. Sometimes they migrate to cities also. Now, what was the problem in the permanent settlement? All those things we have learned. What was the problem in this? The zamindars were not investing in the improvement of land. We will see that the permanent settlement started creating problems. The company officials soon discovered that the zamindars, in fact, not investing in the improvement of land. The land that had been fixed, the land revenue that was fixed by the Britishers was very high. Sometimes zamindar also found it difficult to pay. Anyone who failed to pay the revenue lost his zamindari. Now, if the zamindar is not able to pay that much revenue to the Britishers, they also lost their zamindari. And what happened after that? The Britishers put the particular land on auction. Auction means for the nilami. Zamindaris were sold off at auctions organized by the company. They organize auctions and they sell the land to other zamindars. If the cultivation expand, it results in the extra income of zamindars, but no gain to Britishers. That only I have explained you, that if the prices in the market rose and the cultivation slowly expanded, this meant an increase in the income of the zamindar, but no gain for the company, since it could not increase a revenue demand that had been fixed permanently. The farmers also found this system oppressive. On the other hand, we can see that in the villages, the cultivator found or the farmers found the system extremely oppressive. The rent he paid to the zamindar was very high and his right on the land was insecure. Their land was also taken by them if they were not able to pay the revenue. To pay the rent, he had to often take a loan from the money lender. And when he failed to pay the rent, he was evicted from the land he had cultivated for generations. So, this was the loss for the farmers. And the zamindars did not have any interest in improving the land. Some had lost their lands in the earlier years of the settlement, other has possibility of earning without the trouble and risk of investment. So what happened in the permanent settlement, that since the revenue was fixed and the intermediary was the zamindars, so Britishers thought that the zamindars were having huge profit, or they were gaining huge profit in comparison to the Britishers. So slowly, all these were the problems in the permanent settlement, and by this only, after that, they introduced another settlement or another policy or a new system of revenue collection. You have to know that the permanent settlement covered, or the areas where the land revenue was collected on the basis of permanent settlement, were Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, Banaras, and some division of UP. That means in northern India. I hope this permanent settlements and the Diwani is all clear to all of you. In the next part, I will explain you the Ryotwari and the Mehalwari systems, and we will discuss the further part in further topics in the next part. So, thank you, students. Please watch the video carefully and read your books. Please read your books and watch the video carefully. Make a proper note that you will be or can able to understand or study with that. Thank you, students.